Hello all. I am Six Path Weeb, and welcome to my channel. Today, we dive into a fascinating fanfic topic: what if Naruto existed in the Harry Potter universe? Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's get started. Naruto Uzumaki stood at the entrance of the Great Hall, eyes wide as he took in the grandeur of Hogwarts Castle. The floating candles, the long wooden tables, the enchanted ceiling that reflected the sky outside, everything was so different from Konoha, yet it felt oddly familiar. His whiskered face bore an excited grin, though there was a flicker of confusion in his bright blue eyes. He had been summoned here after an odd encounter in the Hidden Leaf Village. A mysterious portal had appeared in the middle of a fight, and before he could even react, he'd been sucked through it. The next thing he knew, he was standing in a new world, a world that seemed to possess magic in a way he could hardly comprehend. Naruto Uzumaki, a deep voice boomed behind him. Turning around, Naruto met the gaze of a tall man with a pointed hat and a long beard. The man's face was wise and kind, with an air of authority that Naruto instinctively respected. "I am Professor Dumbledore," the headmaster said with a twinkle in his eye. "Welcome to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Naruto scratched the back of his head, a little overwhelmed. Witchcraft and wizardry? Is that like chakra? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled even more. In a way, yes. Magic is a force, like chakra, but it works differently. Here at Hogwarts, we use wands and spells, and we rely on knowledge and focus to manipulate it. Naruto looked down at his hands, already imagining what kind of techniques he could learn here. Spells, huh? Sounds interesting. He clenched his fist. "You don't happen to know if there's a ninja village around here, do you?" Dumbledore chuckled. "This is not a world for ninja, but I think you may find there is a place for someone with your talents. Perhaps you could teach us as much as we teach you." The idea of learning new techniques made Naruto's heart race with excitement. He didn't know how he'd gotten here or why, but the thought of another adventure, another chance to grow stronger, made him feel like he could take on anything. Over the next few days, Naruto explored Hogwarts, trying to get a feel for the place. There were strange, towering bookshelves filled with ancient tomes, rooms that changed shape on their own, and even portraits that talked to him. It was a far cry from the simple training grounds and village streets he was used to, but he couldn't help but feel like there was something familiar about it all, something that reminded him of his path as a ninja. In the classroom, he found himself learning about magic in a completely different way. Potions class with Professor Snape was intense. He had a hard time keeping up with the intricacies of potion making, especially when it involved ingredients like dragon liver and unicorn horn. Still, Naruto's determination kept him from giving up. He may not have been able to master these potions yet, but there was always next time. It was in defense against the dark arts, however, where Naruto felt truly at home. Professor Lupin, a werewolf but kind-hearted man, saw potential in Naruto from the start. "You have the same fighting spirit as a true warrior," he'd said. "Your instincts are sharp. It's just a matter of channeling your energy correctly." It was during one of these classes that Naruto discovered something strange about his own abilities. One day, while learning how to defend against a boggart, a shape-shifting creature that turns into one's worst fear, Naruto found himself facing his own reflection in a mirror. But the mirror didn't show his own face. Instead, it showed an image of a fox, a giant nine-tailed fox, its eyes filled with power and malice. The boggart twisted the image, growing larger and fiercer, but Naruto stood tall, undeterred. "Is that your fear, Naruto?" Lupin asked after the creature was banished. Naruto shrugged, though his face was conflicted. "I've always been the one with the 9 tails inside me. But maybe I'm starting to understand that I'm more than just the fox." As time passed, Naruto grew more comfortable in this magical world. He found a sort of kinship with the students here. Harry Potter, with his own troubled past and powerful abilities, seemed to understand what it was like to have a burden on his shoulders. Ron Weasley was always ready for a laugh, and Hermione Granger's intellect was something Naruto admired, even if he had trouble keeping up with her studies. In fact, Hermione was the one who suggested that Naruto might be able to merge his ninja skills with wizard magic. "Maybe your chakra could enhance the spells, or maybe the magic could make your jutsu even more powerful," she said enthusiastically. Naruto's eyes lit up at the idea. A ninja that could combine magic and chakra? It was a challenge unlike any he had ever faced. But the true test came one night, when a dark force stirred in the Forbidden Forest. The students had been warned not to venture there, But when the creatures of the forest grew restless and a strange darkness started creeping across the grounds, Naruto couldn't ignore it. With his friends by his side, Naruto led the charge into the forest, determined to protect the school from whatever threat loomed ahead. They fought dark creatures, twisted by a malevolent power, and together, they uncovered a dark plot. Someone was using forbidden magic to try and summon something even worse than Voldemort, an ancient creature with the power to warp both magic and chakra itself. But Naruto had something that the darkness didn't understand. He had the will of a ninja. And now, with the knowledge of wizardry at his side, he was going to make sure that this world would never fall. He focused his chakra, feeling the energy swirling within him, and reached out with both hands. Rasengan, he shouted, but this time, the sphere of swirling energy was enhanced by his newfound magical powers. It glowed with a vibrant blue, crackling with energy unlike any Naruto had ever used. The beast was no match for the combined might of chakra and magic. In that moment, Naruto realized that this world wasn't so different from the one he came from after all. Both required strength, courage, and the will to protect those you cared about. And in the end, he knew one thing for sure: as long as he was here, nothing would defeat him. The dark creature screeched as Naruto's enhanced Rasengan collided with its shadowy form. The swirling ball of energy expanded, shattering the oppressive darkness around them. For a brief moment, the forest was bathed in a dazzling light, before the creature dissolved into nothingness, leaving only the echoes of its shrieks in the air. Naruto stood tall, panting heavily, his chest rising and falling. He wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead and turned to his friends. "I told you I'd take it down." He grinned, despite the lingering adrenaline in his veins. Hermione, her eyes wide with awe, couldn't help but marvel. "That was incredible. You actually mixed chakra with magic. I don't think anyone has ever done that before." Ron, still breathing heavily after their harrowing escape, gave a shaky laugh. "Blimey, I think you were the most terrifying thing in this forest, Naruto." Harry smiled, a little stunned but incredibly grateful. "Thanks for leading us, Naruto. I don't know if we could have done it without you." Naruto's grin softened, his usual cocky energy replaced with a rare moment of sincerity. "I'm just doing what any ninja would do," he said with a shrug. "But you guys fought well too. You kept up, and that's what matters." The group stood in the eerie silence of the forbidden forest, surrounded by the remnants of the battle, the moonlight casting long shadows. But despite the threat vanquished, an unsettling sense lingered. There was something more to this dark magic. The creature had been nothing more than a puppet, and it felt like they had only scratched the surface of something far more dangerous. Professor Lupin arrived shortly after, his eyes narrowed in concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice thick with worry. "We're fine, Professor," Harry assured him. "But there's something strange about this dark magic. It's not like anything we've ever seen before." Lupin nodded gravely. "That creature was a manifestation of forbidden magic. It's tied to something darker than Voldemort's legacy. We need to figure out who or what is behind this." Naruto crossed his arms, his gaze hardening. "If there's more of these things out there, then I'm not gonna sit around waiting for them to show up. We'll find the person responsible, and take them down." Dumbledore's voice suddenly echoed in the distance. "Naruto, Harry, Hermione, Ron. Come with me. There is much more at stake here than any of us realized." The group made their way back to the castle, where Dumbledore awaited them in the headmaster's office. The room was filled with books, trinkets, and magical artifacts. As they entered, Dumbledore's piercing eyes met Naruto's, a silent understanding between them. The headmaster didn't speak immediately, as if gathering his thoughts, before he finally addressed them all. "What you encountered in the forest tonight is not just the work of some dark wizard," Dumbledore began, his voice steady. "It is something far older, and more dangerous. It's tied to the origins of magic itself." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Origins of magic? What do you mean?" Dumbledore paused, then glanced at his desk where a silver bird fluttered. "I will explain in time, but first, Naruto, you must understand this. There are powers in this world that are beyond even your considerable strength. The nine tails you carry inside of you. It is a force of immense power, yes. But it is not the only one of its kind." Naruto's face grew serious as he absorbed the gravity of Dumbledore's words. "You mean, there are other creatures like the nine tails?" "Not creatures," Dumbledore replied softly. "For what you carry is not simply a beast. It is the spirit of a force that predates even the first wizards. And while the nine tails is bound to you, its influence is far-reaching. There are those who seek to harness such power for themselves." Hermione stepped forward, her brow furrowed in thought. "But Why would someone want to harness the nine tails? What's so special about it? Magic and chakra are not so different, Hermione, Dumbledore explained, his eyes twinkling. In fact, they may be two sides of the same coin. The nine tails is a manifestation of immense energy, just as many dark wizards and witches throughout history have sought power beyond what magic alone can provide. Naruto felt a familiar unease deep in his gut. He knew the stories of people who sought to control the nine tails, people who would stop at nothing to exploit its power for their own gain. His own village had been at the mercy of such forces before. He couldn't let that happen again. So, what do we do about it? Naruto asked, his voice firm. Dumbledore looked at him with a gaze that seemed to pierce through him. There is a dark force stirring in the shadows, one that seeks to tap into both chakra and magic. And its plan is to open a rift between your world and ours, unleashing chaos that will tear both realities apart. Ron paled. That sounds terrifying. How do we stop it? Naruto demanded, stepping forward, the weight of his words carrying the intensity of a ninja who had already fought more than his fair share of battles. Dumbledore's lips quirked into a faint, thoughtful smile. That is what I hope to discover in the coming days. But for now, I suggest you prepare, Naruto. This battle will require all your strength, and the unity of magic and chakra, to defeat. As the night wore on, and the students returned to their dormitories, Naruto lay awake in his bed, his thoughts racing. The weight of Dumbledore's words lingered in his mind. The nine tails wasn't just his burden. It was a key to something much greater, something that could bring entire worlds to their knees. But no matter how dark the future seemed, Naruto refused to back down. He'd trained his whole life for challenges like this. And now, with the combination of ninja strength and wizard magic at his disposal, there was nothing that could stand in his way. He would stop this threat, and he would make sure no one ever used his power for evil again. The adventure was only just beginning. The days following their confrontation in the Forbidden Forest were filled with restless tension. Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Hogwarts, once a place of magic and wonder, now felt more like a battleground, the ancient castle hiding secrets that not even its most seasoned professors fully understood. Naruto spent his mornings training in the Room of Requirement, practicing his jutsu with even more determination. He'd already begun to combine his chakra control with magic in subtle ways, but the techniques were still rough around the edges. His Rasengan had been more powerful than ever, but there was more to this world than just brute force. He had to learn to channel both magic and chakra in harmony if he was going to defeat whatever was coming. Hermione, ever the bookworm, had joined him in his research. They pored through dusty tomes in the library, looking for anything that might give them a clue about the dark forces threatening both worlds. Ron, though not as keen on books, kept a watchful eye over their shoulders, ever ready for danger to strike. One day, as they sat hunched over an ancient book, a voice interrupted their concentration. Studying late again, I see. Naruto looked up to see Harry standing in the doorway, his face grim. His usual spark was missing, replaced with a cold seriousness. Something on your mind, Harry? Naruto asked, leaning back in his chair. Harry stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I've been thinking. We can't just keep reacting to things as they happen. We need to go on the offensive, find the source of all this before it gets worse. Naruto nodded. Agreed. But we don't even know who or what we're up against. All we know is that someone's trying to merge the worlds of magic and chakra. Whoever they are, they're after power, and they're willing to tear everything apart to get it. Harry paused, his hand resting on the back of a chair. I've been talking to Professor Dumbledore. He says there's an ancient artifact that could help us. But it's hidden somewhere in the castle, and it's not exactly easy to get to. Naruto stood up, his eyes glinting with determination. An artifact, huh? Sounds like a perfect mission for me. He grinned. You know I don't shy away from a challenge. Hermione frowned. It's not that simple, Naruto. This artifact isn't just lying around. It's protected by powerful magic, and we don't even know what kind of defenses it has. Then we'll figure it out, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles. I've faced worse things than a few traps. After a brief discussion, the group agreed to meet in secret the following evening. They needed to act quickly before their enemies realized that they were onto them. That night, the group gathered in the Room of Requirement. The room, ever responsive to their needs, transformed into a grand, dimly lit chamber, with a towering pedestal at its center. Upon the pedestal sat an ornate, glowing crystal, the artifact they sought. Hermione eyed the crystal warily. This is it. The heart of the arcane. According to the texts, It holds immense magical power. It was created centuries ago by wizards who sought to understand the origin of both magic and chakra. Naruto stepped closer to the pedestal, his eyes focused on the crystal. His instincts were telling him that something wasn't right. This is too easy. It feels off. Maybe it's a trap, Ron suggested, his voice tense. Hermione nodded in agreement. We should be cautious. There's no telling what kind of enchantments could be placed on it. But before anyone could stop him, Naruto stepped forward, placing his hand on the crystal. The instant his fingers brushed the surface, a sudden pulse of energy surged through him. His chakra flared instinctively, mixing with the powerful magical force emanating from the heart of the arcane. The room trembled, and the crystal began to glow brighter, its power responding to Naruto's presence. Naruto, Harry shouted, but it was too late. The crystal's glow intensified, and a vortex of dark energy erupted from the pedestal, swallowing the room in a violent, swirling maelstrom of magic and chakra. In an instant, the group was ripped from the room of requirement and thrown into an unfamiliar world. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and blackened, the sky overhead a swirling mass of dark clouds. The air felt heavy, thick with an unnatural, oppressive energy. Naruto quickly regained his balance, eyes scanning their surroundings. This isn't Hogwarts, he muttered. Where are we? It's not just a different place, Hermione said, her voice trembling. It feels like we've crossed into a different reality entirely. Ron looked around nervously. This is bad, isn't it? This looks like something out of a nightmare. A cold laugh echoed through the air, sending a shiver down their spines. From the darkness emerged a figure cloaked in shadows, its face hidden by a hood. The figure's presence was chilling, an aura of power that seemed to warp the very air around them. So, the ninjas and wizards have finally figured it out, the figure said, its voice dripping with malice. How predictable. But too late. Naruto's eyes narrowed, his body instinctively shifting into a fighting stance. Who are you? He demanded. The figure stepped forward, revealing a glinting, silver mask covering their face, with dark symbols etched into its surface. I am the one who will merge your worlds, Uzumaki. The one who will create a new order, where chakra and magic flow as one. The heart of the arcane is just the beginning. You're the one behind all this? Harry asked, his wand drawn. The figure laughed again, colder this time. Yes. And you, Naruto, are the key to unlocking everything. With your chakra and the power of magic, I will be unstoppable. This world will bow to me. Naruto clenched his fists. Not if I have anything to say about it. I won't let you destroy both our worlds. I'll stop you. The figure raised their hands, and the ground trembled again. Dark tendrils of energy shot out, slithering toward Naruto and his friends. But Naruto wasn't afraid. His heart burned with the same fire that had pushed him through every trial in his life. You want to test me? Fine. But you won't like the result. With a roar, Naruto channeled his chakra into his body, feeling the nine tails energy surge within him. At the same time, he focused his newfound magical power, drawing it up through his core. A swirl of blue and gold energy erupted around him, and he shot forward, charging directly at the masked figure with all the fury and strength he could muster. This battle, he knew, was going to be like no other. But Naruto Uzumaki had faced countless odds in his life, and this time, with magic and chakra in hand, he would never back down. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest, his mind completely focused on the masked figure standing before him. The swirling darkness in the air thickened as the tendrils of dark magic shot toward him, but Naruto didn't hesitate. He was more than ready. Rasengan, he shouted, his hand glowing with concentrated chakra. As he rushed forward, the ground beneath him cracked open from the sheer force of his movement. The Rasengan swirled violently in his palm, radiating with an energy that mixed the fiery power of chakra with the crackling essence of magic. The energy felt different, stronger, more unpredictable. The masked figure, with a gesture, summoned a barrier of dark energy to intercept Naruto's attack. The Rasengan collided with the dark shield, a shockwave rippling through the distorted air. The two forces clashed with an ear-piercing roar, the ground shaking violently as though the very fabric of reality was tearing. But Naruto's eyes narrowed in determination. The Rasengan was strong, but he had to push further. He wasn't just fighting for his friends. He was fighting to protect everything he knew, both his world and the one that had become his unexpected home. Drawing more chakra from within, he raised the Rasengan higher, combining it with a surge of magical energy that Hermione had helped him harness. He could feel the magic pulsing within him now, something ancient and raw that matched the energy of the heart of the arcane. This is it, he shouted. With a grunt of effort, he thrust his Rasengan forward once more, and this time, it exploded with a brilliant, blinding light, engulfing the dark barrier in an unrelenting spiral. The masked figure's shield cracked, then shattered, unable to withstand the combined might of chakra and magic. The force of the collision sent the figure flying backward, crashing into the ground. Dark tendrils whipped through the air in a desperate attempt to regroup, but they were no match for Naruto's raw power. The masked figure slowly stood, their form enveloped in an aura of dark energy, but there was something different about them now. A crack had appeared in their silver mask, revealing a sliver of pale, twisted skin beneath. "You think you can defeat me?" The figure hissed, their voice now tinged with an unsettling venom. "You know nothing of the true power that's about to awaken." Naruto's eyes widened slightly as he saw the crack in the mask slowly expand, as if the mask itself was being torn apart by the force of the attack. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just any enemy. This was someone who had planned for something far worse, something that would ripple across both their worlds. With a loud, echoing crack, the mask finally shattered, revealing the true face of the enemy. It was someone Naruto had never expected. Standing before them was a familiar face, but twisted. Dark, hollow eyes stared back at him. Long, white hair flowed down their back, and a cruel smile curled around their lips. "Kabuto?" Naruto whispered, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. "But how? You're supposed to be gone." Kabuto, or what was left of him, gave a twisted laugh. "Ah, so you remember me, Naruto Uzumaki. I was only ever a pawn before. But this is different. I am no longer just the medic of Orochimaru. I am the one who will rewrite reality itself. I have combined the darkest elements of your world with mine. The power of chakra and magic is mine to command now." Harry and the others stood frozen in shock, recognizing the name and the face. "But Kabuto died during the war," Hermione said in disbelief. "How is this possible?" Kabuto's eyes glinted with a malevolent energy as he straightened, raising his arms as if to show off his newfound power. "Oh, I didn't die, Hermione. I merely evolved. Through magic, through forbidden rituals, I've become something far more than a simple medic. I'm the bridge between your worlds. The one who will merge the two, and use both their powers to rule them all." Naruto's fists clenched. "You're insane. The world won't bend to your will." Kabuto sneered, his eyes narrowing in a cruel mockery of a smile. "Oh, I'm not trying to bend the world, Naruto. I'm going to tear it apart, then remake it in my image. The heart of the arcane gave me the key, but you, Naruto, you are the lock. Your chakra, your connection to the Nine Tails, that's what makes this work." Naruto felt a jolt of panic, but he quickly suppressed it. He couldn't afford to lose focus. "So you were using the heart of the arcane to break through the dimensional barrier between our worlds?" Kabuto nodded, his voice cold. "Exactly. The moment the heart of the arcane connected to you, I knew I had my chance. You, with your powerful chakra and that beast inside you, will be the catalyst for merging these realities. And then, with the combined powers of chakra and magic, I will reign supreme." "Not if I can stop you first," Naruto growled. Without another word, Naruto rushed forward once more, but this time Kabuto was ready. He raised a hand, and dark tendrils of energy shot from the ground, spiraling toward Naruto in a deadly snare. They moved faster than Naruto anticipated, and in an instant, they wrapped around his limbs, holding him fast. "Did you think you could just barge in and stop me, Naruto?" Kabuto taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. "You may have strength, but I have knowledge. Knowledge of both magic and chakra. You are nothing compared to the power I command now." Naruto struggled, but the tendrils tightened, squeezing the air from his lungs. His body burned with the strain, but his spirit refused to yield. "I won't give up," he muttered through clenched teeth. "You won't win. Not as long as I'm still breathing." With a fierce roar, Naruto tapped deeper into his chakra, summoning the Nine Tails power. The fiery energy surged within him, crackling with newfound strength. His hands broke free, the dark tendrils snapping like fragile threads. He spun and lashed out, his Rasengan roaring to life again, but this time, he added the force of magic once more. The blue sphere pulsed with golden energy as it collided with Kabuto's dark tendrils, exploding in a burst of pure, untamed power. The shockwave sent the masked villain flying backward, his body crashing against the jagged rocks that littered the dark landscape. Kabuto's form writhed, but a twisted smile still lingered on his lips. "You may have defeated me for now, Naruto Uzumaki," he said, his voice filled with dangerous amusement, "but this is far from over. You're only playing into my hands. The heart has already begun to merge the two worlds. You can't stop it. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow, his body aching, but his resolve burning stronger than ever. I'm not done yet. I'll keep fighting, Kabuto. I'll stop you, no matter what it takes. The battle wasn't over, but Naruto knew one thing for sure: as long as he had his friends by his side, as long as he had the will to protect both worlds, he would never stop. Naruto stood tall, his body still trembling with the aftershock of his battle against Kabuto. His clothes were torn, his hair wild from the intensity of the battle, but the determination in his eyes was unwavering. Despite the dark world around them, despite the looming threat, he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone. His friends, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, stood at his side, their faces a mixture of awe and concern. They'd seen the power Naruto wielded, but they also knew how dangerous the journey ahead would be. Kabuto was only the beginning. Kabuto, still lying among the jagged rocks, let out a laugh. It was dark and unsettling. You've done well to get this far, he sneered. But you're in my world now. This is only the beginning of your misery, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto took a deep breath, ready to charge again, but Harry stepped forward, his hand raised in a calm, yet firm gesture. Wait, Naruto, Harry said. He's right about one thing. We can't just keep charging at him. We need a plan. This place. It's not just another world. It feels like it's shifting, changing around us. Hermione nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. Yes, it's as if this world is reacting to our presence. It's like it's alive. If Kabuto is controlling this place, we might be walking straight into his traps if we're not careful. Naruto glanced around the strange, twisted landscape. The ground was cracked and blackened, jagged mountains loomed on the horizon, and dark clouds swirled above them. The air was thick, heavy with the sense of danger, but also a strange, mysterious magic. Everything seemed alive, as though it could turn against them at any moment. So, what do we do? Ron asked, his voice shaky. We can't just stand here forever. We have to find a way to stop Kabuto from merging our worlds, Naruto said, his voice filled with determination. There has to be something that can reverse the damage he's done. But we'll need all the help we can get. Hermione opened her book, scanning the pages. I think I found something, she exclaimed. It says here that the heart of the arcane isn't just a powerful artifact. It's also a key to finding the pulse of realms, a central point where both chakra and magic collide. If we can reach that pulse, we might be able to reverse what Kabuto is doing. Pulse of realms? Ron repeated, looking confused. What's that supposed to mean? It means we need to find the heart of this place, Hermione explained. The very center of the magic and chakra that Kabuto is controlling. If we can get there and destroy the connection, we'll stop the worlds from merging. But how do we find it? Harry asked. We'll have to follow the clues this world gives us, Naruto said. Every place has its signs, its way of showing you the path. We just need to keep our eyes open and move forward. With that, the group set off, navigating through the twisted landscape. As they walked, the world seemed to shift around them, the path changing with each step they took. One moment, they were walking through a dark, mist-covered forest. The next, they found themselves in a canyon with walls that seemed to pulse with eerie blue light. This place is so weird, Ron said, his voice trembling as he glanced nervously around. It's like it's trying to mess with our heads. Naruto grinned, trying to lighten the mood. Don't worry, Ron. I've faced worse than this. Just stay close and keep your eyes open. We'll make it through together. As they continued, they came across a large stone door, covered in intricate symbols and glowing with faint magic. It looked ancient, almost as if it had been waiting for them. Is this it? Hermione asked, eyeing the door carefully. Naruto nodded. It looks like it could be. The pulse of realms is supposed to be hidden in a place like this. Let's see if we can get it open. The group stepped forward, but as they approached the door, a loud rumbling echoed from the ground beneath them. Suddenly, the air shifted, and a dark figure appeared before them. It was a large, shadowy creature with glowing red eyes, one of the monsters Kabuto had created. We'll have to fight our way through, Naruto said, his expression determined. He formed a seal with his hands. Shadow clone jutsu, he shouted, and in an instant, dozens of Naruto clones appeared, ready for action. The creature let out a roar, charging toward them with a terrifying speed. Naruto's clones surrounded the creature, distracting it long enough for him to create a massive Rasengan. Here goes, Naruto shouted, hurling the Rasengan toward the creature. It collided with the monster, exploding in a burst of chakra and magic. The creature screeched as it was sent flying backward, but it wasn't defeated yet. Harry raised his wand. Stupefy, he shouted, sending a stunning spell at the creature, temporarily paralyzing it. Hermione joined in with a powerful charm that bound the creature in magical ropes. Ron, looking more confident now that the creature was immobilized, grinned. Nice work, everyone. That should hold it for now, Naruto said, nodding at his clones, who quickly dissipated. Now, let's get through that door. The group approached the stone door again, and this time, as they touched the glowing symbols, they began to glow brighter. Slowly, the massive door creaked open, revealing a large chamber bathed in golden light. At the center of the room was a pedestal, and on top of it rested a glowing orb, the Pulse of Realms. This is it, Hermione whispered, awe in her voice. Naruto stepped forward, but before he could reach the pedestal, a sharp, familiar voice echoed through the chamber. So, you think you can stop me, Naruto? Kabuto's voice echoed, now coming from the orb. You may have found the Pulse of Realms, but it's too late. The worlds are already merging, and soon, you'll see the true power I've gained. Naruto's eyes narrowed. We're not done yet, Kabuto. I'll stop you, no matter what. The orb glowed brighter as Kabuto's twisted image appeared within it, dark magic swirling around him. You'll try, but you won't succeed. You're already too late. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber began to tremble, and the floor cracked open. Dark tendrils shot out, wrapping around Naruto and his friends, pulling them toward the orb. Hold on, Naruto shouted, as he summoned all his chakra to push back against the tendrils. This is it, guys. We need to destroy the Pulse of Realms before it's too late. With a roar, Naruto focused all his chakra into his hands, creating a massive Rasengan once more. This time, he was determined to finish it. Rasengan, Naruto shouted, hurling the energy sphere toward the orb. As it collided with the Pulse of Realms, the entire chamber exploded in a flash of light, and everything seemed to freeze. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, slowly, the world around them began to change. The dark tendrils retracted, the floor stopped shaking, and the air became clear again. The Pulse of Realms shattered, and with it, Kabuto's twisted image faded away. We did it, Ron exclaimed, looking around in disbelief. Hermione nodded, relief washing over her. We stopped the merging. Naruto grinned, breathing heavily but feeling triumphant. We did it together, like always. As the group stood in the heart of the chamber, they realized the worlds hadn't merged. They had won. But the battle was never truly over, and new adventures awaited them. For now, though, they could rest knowing that they had stopped a terrible future from becoming reality. And Naruto knew, with the strength of his friends by his side, they could face whatever came next. The journey had been intense, filled with danger, magic, and unexpected twists. But now, as Naruto and his friends stood victorious, there was a moment of peace, a moment to breathe. The worlds had been saved from Kabuto's twisted plan, and the danger had passed. After everything had calmed down, Naruto and his friends returned to Hogwarts, where they were welcomed back with open arms. The mystery of the merging worlds had been solved, but for Naruto, it felt like something was missing. The castle, with its grand halls and ancient corridors, was impressive, but it didn't feel like home. Not in the way that the Hidden Leaf Village had. Not in the way his own room back home had. Still, as he walked through the castle's familiar stone walls, he found comfort in the idea that Hogwarts had become his second home. And now, it was time to retreat to his own space. A place where he could relax, regroup, and think about everything that had happened. Naruto's room at Hogwarts wasn't anything extravagant, but it was his. It had a humble charm to it, a mix of his ninja roots and his new life as a student of magic. The walls were lined with stone, just like most of the castle, but he had added his own personal touches to make it feel more like home. The room was cozy, with a small, round wooden desk near the window where Naruto spent most of his time reading through magic books or practicing his chakra control. A few scattered sheets of parchment lay there, filled with notes from his training and his research on how to blend chakra with magic. Some were written in neat, precise handwriting, while others had doodles of random things like ramen bowls or ninja symbols, as Naruto's mind would often wander. A stack of books on chakra control was piled next to a book on potion making, his interests now divided between two very different worlds. His bed was simple, covered in a dark blue blanket with a few throw pillows scattered around, some of which were shaped like clouds. He had insisted on keeping his favorite orange jacket draped across the chair in the corner, the one he wore in his ninja world. Even though it wasn't a magical item, it was something that reminded him of who he was, where he came from. Near the bed stood a bookshelf filled with a mix of his own ninja scrolls and Hogwarts textbooks. There were a few things here that were strictly magical, books about transfiguration, charms, and defensive magic, but Naruto still found himself reaching for his old ninja scrolls when he needed something familiar. He'd even managed to bring along a few mementos from the Hidden Leaf Village, like a framed picture of his friends and the Hokage monument, showing that, no matter how far he'd come, he would never forget where he belonged. One corner of his room was dedicated to his ninja tools. A small, wooden box was neatly tucked away beneath the desk, holding his kunai, shuriken, and a few scrolls. Even though he hadn't used them in this world, Naruto kept them close, a reminder that no matter where he was, he could always be a ninja. A small table beside the window had a bowl of ramen, though it was now cold, and a few snack wrappers were scattered across the surface. The scent of his favorite food still lingered faintly in the air. It was his way of staying connected to his past, even in a place full of magic. On the walls, you could see traces of his new life mixing with the old. A Hogwarts scarf hung beside a picture of the Hokage, both important pieces of his journey. One wall had a magical map of Hogwarts, constantly shifting and updating itself, showing all the secret passages he had yet to discover. It was something Harry had given him, a little gesture of friendship, showing that even in a world of magic, there was always room for adventure. But the most striking thing in the room was the large window that faced out over the Hogwarts grounds. When Naruto looked out from it, he could see the vast expanse of the castle's gardens, the Quidditch pitch in the distance, and the Forbidden Forest. It wasn't the Hidden Leaf Village, but the view brought him peace. He could watch the sunsets here, just like he did back home, and in those quiet moments, it felt like everything might just be okay. It was his own space, his retreat from the chaos of both the ninja world and the wizarding world. The room had become his sanctuary, a place where he could recharge, reflect, and prepare for whatever new adventures might come next. Naruto collapsed onto the bed, throwing his arms behind his head as he stared at the ceiling. His mind still buzzed with everything that had happened, the battles, the strange new magic, the bonds he'd formed with his friends. But in the quiet of his room, he allowed himself to relax. For once, he didn't have to fight. Not tonight. Everything's different here, Naruto murmured to himself. But it feels right. With a contented sigh, he closed his eyes, allowing the exhaustion of the day to pull him into sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight, Naruto was at peace, surrounded by the things that mattered most, his friends, his new home, and the knowledge that he could handle whatever came his way. The room, small as it was a reflection of Naruto himself. Simple yet full of heart. Filled with memories, hope, and a little bit of magic. It was a place where he could truly be himself. And that, Naruto realized, was all he needed. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across Naruto's room. The air was still, the quiet of the early morning offering a sense of calm before the bustle of a new day. Naruto stirred in his bed, stretching out lazily with a wide yawn. The usual energy he carried wasn't there, not yet, anyway. He needed a moment to appreciate the peace before his mind inevitably shifted to the next adventure. The scent of fresh pancakes wafted through the hallways of the Gryffindor Tower, signaling that breakfast was being served. With a deep breath, Naruto rolled out of bed, slipping on his usual orange jacket, now well worn from the days of training in both the wizarding world and his own. He grabbed his headband, tying it around his forehead, just the way he did back home. Even though the world was different, the symbol of the hidden leaf still felt like part of his identity, something that he would never let go of. Stepping into the corridor, he ran into Harry, who was also heading down for breakfast. "Hey, Naruto. Sleep well?" Harry greeted with a smile. "Yeah, pretty good," Naruto replied, running a hand through his spiky hair. "It's nice to have a bit of quiet for once. But I'm starving. I swear I could eat a mountain of pancakes right now." "Well, you're in luck. There's a mountain of pancakes waiting for you in the Great Hall," Harry chuckled. "It's becoming a bit of a tradition now. I'm starting to think you might be more of a pancake expert than Ron." "Is that so?" Naruto grinned, picking up his pace as they headed for the stairs. "I guess I'll have to eat enough to prove it." As they entered the Great Hall, the chatter of students filled the air. The long tables were lined with platters of food, and the morning sunlight illuminated the vast expanse of the hall, casting light on the banners of the 4 houses that hung from the ceiling. It felt like home, in a way, a place where Naruto could forget about the dangers that lurked outside for a while, surrounded by the laughter and camaraderie of his friends. Naruto sat down at the Gryffindor table next to Ron and Hermione, who were already piling their plates high with food. As he dug into a plate of pancakes and eggs, his thoughts drifted back to the events of the previous day. The heart of the arcane, Kabuto, the pulse of realms, it all seemed like a distant dream now, something surreal that Naruto never imagined he'd experience. But even though they had won, he couldn't shake the feeling that more challenges awaited him. The connection between chakra and magic was just beginning to be understood, and there was no telling what other threats might emerge. "You've got that look again," Hermione said, snapping Naruto out of his thoughts. "What's on your mind?" Naruto blinked, realizing he'd been staring at his pancakes without actually eating. "Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how lucky we are that we stopped Kabuto," he said with a smile, trying to brush it off. "But you know, there's still a lot to figure out. Magic and chakra together. It's so different, but it feels like we're only scratching the surface." Harry leaned in, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. "What do you mean? I thought we pretty much stopped whatever Kabuto was planning." "Yeah, we did," Naruto said, taking a bite of his pancake. "But I'm not sure Kabuto was the only one who knew how to merge chakra and magic. It feels like there's more to it, something we haven't uncovered yet." Hermione, ever the researcher, raised an eyebrow. "You're right. The heart of the arcane was just one artifact. There could be more magical objects out there that work in similar ways, linking the two worlds." Ron grunted, his mouth full of food. "Let's not go looking for trouble, okay? We've been through enough lately. I think I'd prefer a nice, peaceful year." Naruto laughed. "Yeah, I get it, Ron. But trouble seems to follow me wherever I go. And if there's something dangerous out there, I want to know about it before it's too late." After breakfast, the group decided to spend some time in the library, looking for any clues about how magic and chakra might connect beyond what they already knew. The library was an imposing, labyrinthine structure, with towering shelves of books stretching high into the air. It was like a maze, and the soft rustling of pages and quiet whispers of students lost in their studies gave the place a peaceful, almost mystical feeling. As they sat around a large wooden table, Hermione pulled out a book titled Ancient Artifacts and Their Hidden Powers, while Naruto retrieved one of his own ninja scrolls from his bag. He was hoping to find something that might help him understand how magic worked on the same level as chakra. It was strange, but it felt right. After a few hours of studying, Naruto found himself distracted by something. He'd been flipping through pages, but his mind kept wandering. The idea of being able to blend the two worlds seemed like an impossible feat, but what if it was possible? What if they could learn to combine the best of both magic and chakra? "Hey, Hermione," he said suddenly, "have you ever heard of a jutsu that uses both chakra and magic?" Hermione paused, looking up from her book. "A jutsu that combines the two? I haven't, actually. But I suppose it could be possible. If you could learn to control both magic and chakra at the same time, you'd have access to more power than most witches and wizards ever could." Naruto grinned. "That's what I thought. Maybe we should try an experiment with it. I mean, if we can combine them, we'd have a whole new way to protect both worlds." Harry leaned over the table. "You really think it's possible?" "Well, it's not like anything else we've tried has been easy," Naruto said, tapping the scrolls in front of him. "But we're still figuring it out. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the impossible can become possible, especially when you've got good friends helping you out." Ron rolled his eyes. "Here we go again. You're always up for a challenge, aren't you?" Naruto grinned even wider. "Hey, it's how I roll. And besides, if I can do it, maybe I'll finally figure out how to make ramen with magic." Ron blinked. "Wait, you're serious about that?" "Totally," Naruto said with a laugh. "I mean, imagine ramen that makes itself. It'd be the best thing ever." The group spent the rest of the afternoon in the library, looking for anything that might give them clues on how to merge chakra and magic. They were no closer to a solution, but the excitement of possibility hung in the air. For the first time in a long while, Naruto felt a sense of hope and purpose in this new world. As the day turned into night, the moonlight reflected off the library's tall windows, casting a soft glow over the bookshelves. Naruto closed the scroll he'd been reading and leaned back in his chair, content. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new puzzles to solve, but for tonight, he was with his friends. And that was all that mattered. "Let's get some rest," Naruto said, standing up. "Tomorrow's another day of adventure." As they headed out of the library and back toward the Gryffindor Tower, Naruto couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The journey ahead might be filled with uncertainty, but one thing was for sure, he was ready for whatever came next. And as they walked back together, the promise of new adventures and the strength of his friends filled Naruto with a renewed sense of determination. No matter where he was, He would always be ready to face the unknown. The next morning, Naruto was up early, as usual, but today he felt a renewed sense of energy. The library the day before had sparked a new excitement in him. The idea of blending chakra and magic felt like a challenge he was truly ready for. But there was something else he realized during his research. He wanted to excel, to be the best he could be in this magical world, just like he had in his own. Naruto might have been known for his mischievous antics and his impulsive nature, but he was also known for one other thing: his incredible determination to be the best. And now, in a world of magic and wizardry, he wasn't going to let anything hold him back. That morning, as the students gathered for their first class of the day, Naruto found himself walking through the halls of Hogwarts with an unexpected sense of purpose. He had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but today, he was more focused than ever. His first class of the day was Charms, taught by Professor Flitwick. As the students filed into the classroom, they could already see the tiny professor standing on a stack of books, beaming with excitement as usual. Naruto couldn't help but grin at the sight. Professor Flitwick reminded him of the teachers back in the Hidden Leaf Village, small in stature but big in heart and wisdom. "Ah, Naruto. So glad you could join us," Professor Flitwick called out, spotting the blonde ninja as he walked in. Naruto grinned, walking over to an empty seat next to Harry and Hermione. "Good morning, Professor," he said cheerfully. "I'm ready to learn some magic." "Excellent." Professor Flitwick beamed. "Today, we'll be practicing the Wingardium Leviosa charm, the levitation charm. Let's see if we can make things float in the air, shall we?" Naruto nodded enthusiastically. He'd already learned a bit about Wingardium Leviosa from his friends, but he was determined to perfect it. He had always believed in his ability to learn quickly, and magic was no different from his ninja techniques. Practice and dedication would lead to success. "Remember, class," Professor Flitwick said, "the key to this charm is focus. You must keep your wand movements precise and your mind clear. Let's see who can make the feather float." Naruto picked up his wand, his eyes narrowing with determination. He'd been practicing his chakra control for years, but this was something new. Magic required focus, just like chakra. "Here we go," Naruto muttered under his breath, as he held his wand over the feather on his desk. He flicked his wrist just as he'd seen Harry do, but then added a bit of his own flair. "Wingardium Leviosa," he exclaimed, the words flowing easily off his tongue. To his delight, the feather didn't just float, it soared upwards, gliding through the air like a leaf caught in a gentle breeze. The class gasped in awe, and Professor Flitwick's eyes widened in surprise. "Well done, Naruto," he said, clapping his tiny hands. "You've grasped the charm on your first try. Very impressive." Naruto's grin stretched across his face. He had nailed it. "It was nothing," he said modestly, though his chest puffed up with pride. He glanced over at Harry and Hermione, who were both beaming at him. "Great job, Naruto," Harry said, giving him a thumbs up. Hermione nodded, her eyes glinting with approval. "That was fantastic. I'm impressed." Naruto smiled. "Thanks, but I've got a lot more to learn. I'm just getting started." The rest of the class went by quickly, and Naruto found himself excelling in charms, mastering each spell with ease. By the end of the period, he had successfully levitated not only feathers, but also books and small objects, much to the amazement of his classmates. His enthusiasm for learning magic was infectious, and even Professor Flitwick seemed impressed by his quick grasp of the subject. As the students filed out of the classroom, Naruto's mind was already racing ahead. He had always loved challenges, and this one was no different. He was determined to prove that he could master magic just as he had mastered his ninja techniques. The next class was Defense Against the Dark Arts with Professor Lupin. Naruto had heard great things about him, and he was eager to learn from one of the most skilled defense professors Hogwarts had ever had. Professor Lupin greeted the class with a warm smile, his eyes twinkling behind his glasses. "Today, we'll be practicing some defensive spells," he said, his voice calm and steady. "You'll need to be able to protect yourselves from all sorts of threats, magical and otherwise." Naruto was ready. He knew that learning defensive techniques was just as important as learning how to attack. After all, it was the strength of his defense that had gotten him through countless battles back in the Hidden Leaf Village. The class began with a simple Protego charm, which created a protective shield. Naruto listened carefully as Professor Lupin explained the charm's nuances. It was a defensive spell, designed to block curses and jinxes. But Naruto didn't just want to block spells, he wanted to perfect the technique. "Protego," he shouted, his wand flicking in the proper direction. The shield appeared in front of him, shimmering briefly in the air. It wasn't perfect, but it was a solid start. Professor Lupin approached him with a knowing smile. Nice attempt, Naruto. You're getting the hang of it. But remember, the shield needs to be firm, not just a flicker. Focus on making it as strong as possible. Naruto nodded seriously. He wasn't going to let this challenge get the better of him. He focused hard, picturing the chakra flow in his mind, blending it with the magical energy he could feel from the wand. This was something new, but it felt like something he could conquer. Protego. He repeated, his voice more confident this time. This time, the shield shimmered and held steady in front of him, blocking the incoming spell from Professor Lupin. A few students around him gasped in surprise, and Professor Lupin raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. Very good, Naruto. You've got a natural talent for this, Lupin said with a smile. Keep it up. Naruto beamed, his face lighting up with excitement. He wasn't just learning magic, he was mastering it. He could feel it in his bones. This was his time to shine, and he wouldn't stop until he became the very best wizard he could be. By the end of the day, as he walked back to Gryffindor Tower with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, Naruto felt a new sense of accomplishment. I think I might actually be getting the hang of this, Naruto said, looking at his friends. I didn't expect magic to feel so natural. Well, we always knew you had talent, Harry said with a grin. But you're definitely impressing everyone. I think you might be the first person who can learn charms and jutsu with equal skill. Ron laughed. Yeah, I'm starting to think you're just showing off now. Not showing off, Naruto protested, laughing. Just doing my best. I want to be as good at magic as I am at being a ninja. Hermione smiled at him. And you're well on your way. I think you're going to do great things here, Naruto. Naruto nodded. I won't stop until I do. There's still so much to learn, and I'm ready for it. I'm going to make sure this world, and my world, are both safe, no matter what. As they reached the entrance to Gryffindor Tower, Naruto felt a sense of pride welling up inside him. It wasn't just about being a ninja anymore. In this new world, with the help of his friends, he was becoming something more. A bright student, a skilled wizard, and someone who was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And in that moment, Naruto knew, he was ready to embrace both worlds with everything he had. The next few days at Hogwarts passed in a blur of excitement for Naruto. The magic he had already begun to master was beginning to blend seamlessly with his own ninja skills, and the more he practiced, the more it felt like home. His classmates were starting to recognize just how determined and bright he was, but Naruto wasn't interested in impressing them. No, he was interested in learning everything he could about magic, the art that had become his new challenge. That week, in Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall, Naruto had his first true test of magical creativity. Transfiguration, Professor McGonagall explained, is the art of changing one object into another. It requires precision, focus, and control over the magic. Today, we'll be attempting to turn a matchstick into a needle. Naruto's eyes sparkled with excitement. A challenge. He was used to turning a kunai into a shuriken with his chakra, but turning one thing into something else entirely? This was new. And it sounded pretty fun. The class got underway, and everyone began focusing intently on their matchsticks. Naruto, of course, was all in. He had already learned that magic and chakra shared some similarities, both required focus, control, and energy. The way he had manipulated his chakra back home was similar to how he would control magic, he thought. He just needed to apply his ninja mentality to it. He waved his wand with the proper incantation. Aguamenti, he murmured, creating a small stream of water from his wand. He couldn't help but grin at the effect. But he quickly refocused. That wasn't the task. With a deep breath, he picked up the matchstick, his mind clearing as he concentrated on the task at hand. Transfiguro, he said aloud, flicking his wrist to mimic the motion that Professor McGonagall had demonstrated. The matchstick glowed for a moment, shimmering in the air. For a second, Naruto thought it was working. But as he watched, it cracked, breaking into two pieces, a small puff of smoke rising from it. Naruto laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Guess it's not as easy as it looks, he muttered. Professor McGonagall was already walking toward him. She didn't seem disappointed, though. She simply observed the matchstick that had broken apart into tiny fragments. It's a good start, Naruto. Transfiguration is tricky, even for experienced witches and wizards. The fact that it reacted means you're on the right track. But focus more on your concentration. Magic requires a certain level of precision, and your wand movements need to align with your intention. Try again, but slow down. Naruto nodded eagerly, ready to take on the challenge once more. Got it, Professor. He took a deep breath and focused. Precision, control, he reminded himself, just like controlling chakra. This time, he would make it work. Naruto raised his wand again, eyes narrowing in determination. Transfiguro. He called out firmly, more focused than ever before. The matchstick began to glow again. This time, it didn't break apart. Instead, it began to elongate and shimmer. Slowly, it transformed. A soft crackling sound filled the air, and as the glow faded, Naruto saw that he had successfully transfigured his matchstick into a shiny, perfectly formed needle. The class gasped, turning to look at him, and Professor McGonagall's lips curled into an approving smile. Well done, Naruto. It's rare for students to succeed so quickly, especially in their first attempt at transfiguration. Your precision is admirable. Naruto beamed with pride, his heart racing with excitement. Thanks, Professor. I'll keep practicing. I'm sure I can get even better. You certainly will, if you continue with that mindset, Professor McGonagall said, before moving on to assist other students. By the time the bell rang, signaling the end of the class, Naruto was on cloud 9. It wasn't just about turning a matchstick into a needle. It was about the satisfaction of mastering a new kind of magic, proving to himself that his abilities weren't confined to chakra alone. The next class was herbology, and while Naruto wasn't as sure about plants and magical herbs, his interest was piqued. The magical properties of plants were something he had never encountered before, and that alone made the class worth attending. Professor Sprout, with her wide-brimmed hat and cheerful demeanor, introduced them to several magical plants, including the highly temperamental venomous tentacula. Naruto listened intently as Professor Sprout explained how the venomous tentacula had the ability to release poisonous spores when threatened. Be careful, everyone, she said with a twinkle in her eye. This plant doesn't like being disturbed. Naruto's curiosity was immediately piqued. He had always been fascinated by nature, though he wasn't sure how much he could apply his ninja skills to plants. Still, he was eager to learn. As the class went on, they were tasked with using a magical charm to tend to a mandrake, a plant known for its screeching cry. It was a delicate procedure, requiring both care and magic. The goal was to use the Lumos charm to give the mandrake the right amount of light and warmth to help it grow. Naruto, ever the problem solver, approached the task with his usual energy. He wasn't sure how it would work, but he knew he could figure it out. Lumos, he said, pointing his wand at the base of the mandrake, channeling the magical energy through the wand. The mandrake slowly responded to the light, its leaves quivering as they stretched toward the magical glow. Naruto was mesmerized. It was like channeling chakra through his hands to bring energy into a plant, just in a different form. He could feel the plant responding to the magic, its growth directed by his wand's light. He smiled as he watched the plant bloom under the Lumos charm. I did it, he whispered to himself, amazed by the magical world's potential. Professor Sprout, who had been watching from the sidelines, nodded with approval. Well done, Naruto. Not many students can get the mandrake to respond so quickly. You've got a natural talent with plants. Naruto grinned. Thanks, Professor. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this magic stuff. By the end of the day, Naruto's head was full of new knowledge, new spells, and even some basic magical theory. He had made significant strides in his learning, and his confidence was growing by the minute. But, of course, he wasn't done yet. The evening came quickly, and as the students gathered for dinner in the Great Hall, Naruto felt a sense of accomplishment. But there was still so much to learn. So many spells to master, and so much potential still untapped. With each passing day, he could feel the magic becoming more and more a part of him, just as chakra had always been. And the best part? He was just getting started. He sat down at the Gryffindor table, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione were already chatting about their day. So, how'd the classes go? Harry asked, looking up as Naruto sat down. Naruto grinned widely, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. It's awesome. I'm starting to get the hang of transfiguration, and herbology was cool too. I turned a matchstick into a needle, and I made a mandrake bloom with a simple charm. Hermione raised an eyebrow, impressed. A needle? That's impressive, Naruto. You really are picking up magic quickly. I told you I'd be great at this. Naruto replied, his grin widening. The magic here is a whole new world. I can't wait to see what I can do next. As he dug into his dinner, Naruto felt a warm sense of pride. He wasn't just a ninja anymore. He was a student of magic, a bright, talented one. And with each passing day, he knew he was one step closer to mastering the magic that had become such an important part of his journey. Tomorrow, he would learn more, do more, and grow even stronger. And with that thought, Naruto's resolve only grew. He was ready to take on whatever the magical world had to offer. The following days passed in a whirlwind of magical lessons, practice, and new discoveries. Naruto's days were packed, and his enthusiasm only grew as he ventured deeper into the mysteries of magic. He'd already begun to form a unique bond with his magic. His chakra-infused mindset blended seamlessly with the spells he learned at Hogwarts. It was like he'd unlocked a new level of his own potential. One afternoon, after care of magical creatures with Hagrid, Naruto found himself in the library again, trying to absorb as much magical knowledge as he could. As he pored over a book titled Magical Theory and Spellcraft, The Hidden Connections, he felt a sense of excitement flood through him. He had learned the basics, but it was the hidden layers of magic that intrigued him the most. Just like his chakra, magic had deeper levels, ones he was eager to understand. Suddenly, Harry, Ron, and Hermione joined him at the table. "Hey, Naruto," Harry said, slumping down into the chair beside him. "You know, you're looking pretty studious lately. What's got you so hooked on this stuff?" Naruto grinned, glancing up from the book. "What can I say? Magic's awesome. I think there's a lot more to it than just waving wands around. Just like ninja techniques, there's gotta be a deeper understanding if I want to master it." Hermione gave him a knowing smile. "Exactly. You've got the right mindset, Naruto. Magic is all about theory and practice. If you want to take it to the next level, you've got to understand the foundations." Ron looked skeptically at the pile of books Naruto had gathered. "I don't know if I could sit through all that reading. I prefer hands-on practice, personally." "I get that," Naruto said, his voice filled with excitement. "But sometimes, the magic's in the details. I'm trying to see if I can connect what I know about chakra to what I'm learning here. I just have this feeling that if I can figure out the connection, I'll be able to do things no one's ever seen before." "That's what I'm talking about," Harry said, his eyes lighting up with admiration. "I can't wait to see you pull off something incredible. You've already blown us away in charms, transfiguration, and even defense against the dark arts." Hermione nodded in agreement. "You're definitely one of the brightest students in our year. And you've only just started." Naruto's grin grew even wider, but his focus remained sharp. "Thanks, guys. But I still feel like there's a lot more to learn. I've only scratched the surface of magic, and there's so much more out there, so much potential." The group spent the rest of the afternoon studying, and soon enough, dinner time arrived. As usual, the Great Hall was a hub of activity, with students talking and laughing, the long tables filled with food. But Naruto was still lost in thought. He couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, something that would put everything he had learned to the test. That night, after dinner, as Naruto made his way back to Gryffindor Tower, he noticed something strange. There was a flicker of light in the hallway, like a shadow just out of sight. Curious, he followed the light, his instincts kicking in. It led him to a narrow staircase that he'd never seen before. The stairs creaked underfoot as he climbed, the faint glow becoming brighter. At the top of the stairs, a door stood ajar. With a mixture of curiosity and caution, Naruto pushed it open. Inside was a large, dimly lit room, filled with ancient books and peculiar artifacts. The air hummed with magic, and Naruto could feel the energy swirling around him. It felt different from anything he'd encountered before, almost like a hidden place, untouched by time. "What is this place?" he muttered, stepping inside. He scanned the shelves, his eyes landing on a dusty book lying on a pedestal. The book's cover was decorated with strange symbols, ones that seemed almost familiar to him. Naruto's hand reached out instinctively, and the moment his fingers brushed the cover, a pulse of energy surged through him. A voice echoed in his mind, clear as day, "You are ready, Naruto." Naruto froze, his heart racing. The book began to glow, and for a moment, the room seemed to fade into darkness. But then, with a sudden flash of light, the vision cleared. Naruto was standing in the middle of a massive library, though it didn't feel like Hogwarts. There, standing before him, was a figure cloaked in shadows. The figure's face was obscured, but the voice that came from it was both familiar and otherworldly. "I've been waiting for you, Naruto Uzumaki," the figure said, its voice rich with ancient power. "Your connection to both chakra and magic will change the course of your destiny." Naruto took a step forward, his curiosity overcoming any hesitation. "Who are you?" The figure remained silent for a moment, as if considering the question. "I am a guardian of knowledge, one who has watched over magic for centuries. And you, Naruto, are the key to unlocking a power beyond this world. Your path will lead you to great challenges, but also to great discoveries. Naruto frowned slightly, trying to process the strange encounter. A guardian? What does that mean for me? The figure's voice softened. You will soon discover. But first, you must understand that magic, like chakra, has its own rules. The power you are seeking lies within you, but it is not easy to control. You must learn to wield it with caution, or it will consume you. Naruto stood tall, determination lighting his eyes. I'm ready. I've trained my whole life to control my power. If this magic is like chakra, then I know I can learn it. The figure nodded, the shadows around it shifting as if in approval. Very well. But remember, Naruto, power alone will not define your path. You must decide what you will do with it. The vision began to fade, and before Naruto could ask another question, the figure was gone. The room seemed to return to normal, and he found himself standing in front of the pedestal once more. The book, now closed, seemed to beckon to him. Power beyond this world, Naruto whispered to himself. His heart raced. There was so much to uncover. He closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. The vision had given him more questions than answers, but one thing was clear: whatever was happening, it was meant to be part of his journey. It was as if magic had chosen him to bridge the gap between two worlds, ninja and wizard. Determined, Naruto grabbed the book and made his way back to Gryffindor Tower, his mind racing with possibilities. This was just the beginning. Magic, like chakra, was a force that could shape the future. And Naruto was going to make sure that future was his to control. When he finally made it back to his room, he opened the book, his eyes scanning its pages. The book was filled with ancient symbols and complex spells, ones he didn't fully understand yet, but would in time. As he read, Naruto could feel the magic seeping into him, just like chakra had always done. This is it, he whispered to himself. I'll learn this magic. I'll master it. And I'll make sure nothing will stop me. For the first time since arriving at Hogwarts, Naruto felt an unshakable certainty in his heart. This was his destiny. And no matter the challenges ahead, he was ready for them. As Naruto sat there, surrounded by ancient books and the flickering light of his bedside lamp, he realized something important. His journey at Hogwarts had only just begun. With magic now intertwined with his chakra, the possibilities were endless. He wasn't just a ninja anymore. He was something new, a bridge between two worlds, one of ancient magical power and the other of boundless energy. But this was more than just about power. It was about purpose. Naruto understood that he wasn't here to simply learn and grow stronger for the sake of it. He had always fought for the people he cared about, for the village he came from, and for his dreams. Now, as he stood on the cusp of mastering an entirely new force, his purpose remained the same. He would protect, he would learn, and he would always push forward, no matter what. The voice of the shadowy figure echoed in his mind again. Power alone will not define your path. You must decide what you will do with it. Naruto smiled softly to himself, the weight of that truth settling in. Magic, like chakra, was a tool, not an end in itself. It was his choices that would truly shape the world. With a final glance at the book before him, Naruto closed it gently, the pages whispering secrets only he could uncover. His journey wasn't just about mastering magic. It was about using everything he had, magic, chakra, and his own unyielding spirit, to create a future where no one would be left behind. He stood up from the desk, feeling the weight of his dreams and aspirations settle into his heart like a promise. The path ahead would be full of challenges, but that was nothing new. He had faced the impossible before, and he would face it again, now armed with both magic and the will to protect. I'm ready, he whispered, the words burning with resolve. And so, Naruto's journey in the magical world of Hogwarts began, a journey where destiny was waiting to be rewritten, one spell at a time. The end. Dear YouTube family. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more updates. Thank you for your continued support. Best regards. Six Path Weeb.